Ladies and gentlemen, not all triumphs are loud, not all battles draw blood, and not all victories are meant to be seen. There exists a kind of victory the world does not cheer for. It does not come with parades, medals, or applause. It comes silently, earned in moments when no one is watching. It is not found in overcoming others, but in overcoming oneself. This is the quiet victory. It begins the moment a man chooses patience over rage. When a woman swallows pride and speaks the truth instead of what is easy. When one endures pain without complaint, walks away from insult without retaliation, and acts with virtue, even when no reward is promised. It is the kind of victory that asks nothing from the world, yet offers everything to the soul. In the clamor of ambition and the thirst for recognition, it is tempting to believe that greatness must be seen to be real. But what is more powerful, the man who conquers a city or the one who conquers his own desires? What is more enduring, a moment of glory or a lifetime of self-mastery? The quiet victory does not shout. It does not need to. It is content in its silence because it is rooted in strength, in discipline, in wisdom, and most of all in freedom, the freedom from being ruled by fear, anger, pleasure, or pride. So let others seek to be known. Let others chase noise. Let them win the world and lose themselves. We will keep walking the still path. And when the day ends and we stand alone in the quiet, we will know, without the need for witnesses, that we have won. Thank you. True victory is not the kind that demands a stage. It is not written in headlines, nor does it parade itself before an audience. It happens quietly, often invisibly deep within the soul. The world may never know of it. There may be no proof, no evidence, and no applause. Yet it is the kind of triumph that builds a solid life, one free of inner turmoil and guided by reason. The external world will always remain uncertain and beyond full control. Fortunes change, people disappoint, circumstances shift. To place our sense of victory in such shifting sands is to tie our worth to that which is unstable. But inner mastery, the quiet command over our thoughts, reactions, and judgments, offers something more permanent. The Stoics taught that while we may not control what happens to us, we are always in control of how we respond. That response, measured, thoughtful, and grounded in virtue, is the true battlefield. Each time we restrain a harmful impulse or choose courage in the face of fear, we strike a blow in our own favor. No banner is raised, no horn sounds, but a silent, noble victory has been achieved. It takes far more strength to restrain the self than to defeat an opponent, to meet insult with silence, to endure discomfort without complaint, to remain steady when things fall apart. These are acts of profound resilience. In the eyes of the world, these may be small acts, even signs of weakness. But in truth, they are the strongest expressions of will. The individual who rules over their emotions, who can be calm in provocation and unmoved by flattery, holds more power than any rule of nations. What we often call winning in society tends to involve gaining more money, status, influence, or control. But those gains are external and can vanish as quickly as they come. The person who chases only external victories is forever dependent on them. Their sense of worth rises and falls with outcomes. The one who wins within, however, is not so shaken by the losses of the world. They do not crumble when fortune turns because their center of gravity is internal. They do not rely on outcomes to affirm their value. They already possess what they need: steadiness, clarity, and discipline. Inner victory is not glamorous. It demands discipline in the face of indulgence, stillness in the face of chaos, and patience in the face of provocation. It requires a deep honesty with oneself, a willingness to see one's flaws, not with shame, but with the calm resolve to improve. It does not seek to impress others. It seeks to live rightly. In fact, the more one grows inwardly, the less one needs to be seen. The victory becomes self-contained, self-sufficient. Even when external life appears unchanged, inner victory reshapes everything. The same situations arise, delays, conflicts, discomforts, but the response is no longer dictated by instinct or ego. There is space between impulse and action. In that space there is freedom. That is where wisdom lives. That is where victory is found. Not in shouting down others, but in choosing silence when one could shout. Not in getting the last word, but in knowing it's not needed. not in domination, but in detachment from the need to dominate. Virtue is its own reward because it does not require recognition, compensation, or validation to be worth choosing. The very act of living in accordance with virtue, choosing honesty over deception, courage over cowardice, temperance over excess, and justice over selfishness, brings with it a deep internal harmony. This alignment between one's actions and one's principles creates a sense of integrity that cannot be bought, imitated, or imposed by others. It is not transactional. It is not a performance. It is the quiet fulfillment of being true to what is right, simply because it is right. In a world where value is often measured by external results, praise, wealth, promotion, virtue stands apart as something valuable in and of itself. It does not require a witness. A person may tell the truth even when lying would benefit them more in the moment. They may choose the harder path not because it leads to reward, but because it preserves their character. These choices, while invisible to others, are the very foundation of a life worth living. They mark the difference between appearing good and being good. The latter is harder, lonelier, and more enduring. There is something profoundly liberating in acting rightly without needing anything in return. It frees a person from the chains of external approval. When one acts only when applause is guaranteed or benefits are certain, they become a servant of outcomes. But when one acts with virtue regardless of the result, they become free. They are no longer dependent on the shifting opinions of others or the unpredictable tides of circumstance. They have found stability within themselves. This is the wisdom of those who live by principle rather than preference. Preferences shift with mood, desire, and opportunity. Principles remain firm. A person guided by virtue does not need to pause and calculate what will earn them favor. Their compass is internal. Their decisions are not rooted in gain, but in what maintains their integrity. And though such decisions might cost them something on the surface, status, wealth, convenience, they gain something far more precious, peace of mind and clarity of conscience. Often, virtue asks for the harder thing. It asks for restraint when indulgence would be easy, for humility when pride would feel good, for silence when one is tempted to speak harshly. And yet choosing virtue in these moments sharpens the soul. It strengthens the character like resistance strengthens muscle. Each time a person chooses what is right over what is easy, they affirm their dignity. They remind themselves that they are not ruled by impulse or fear, but guided by wisdom and intention. The world may not see these victories. They may go unnoticed or even be mocked. A person who refuses to cut corners or manipulate others might be called naive or weak. But in the quiet of their own mind, they carry a deeper strength. They know that no amount of applause can replace the steady confidence that comes from living rightly. That kind of strength cannot be faked. It is earned slowly by daily acts of discipline and courage. Even in suffering, virtue holds its value. To suffer with dignity, to remain kind while in pain, to hold firm to one's values while under pressure, these are profound achievements. They may not reduce the suffering, but they elevate the soul. They allow one to walk through difficulty with their head high, knowing that while they may not have chosen their circumstances, they have chosen their response, and in that choice there is power. Virtue does not guarantee success as the world defines it, but it guarantees something greater, that one's soul is not for sale, that one's worth is not measured by gain, and that even in obscurity one can live a life that is deeply, quietly good. Silence is often mistaken for weakness in a world that rewards noise, speed, and reaction. Yet in silence there is strength, strength of control, strength of presence, and strength of character. To hold one's tongue when provoked, to wait rather than rush, to observe rather than interrupt, these are not signs of submission, but of mastery. They reveal a person who does not need to assert dominance to know their own power. They do not fear being misunderstood, nor are they desperate to be heard. Their silence speaks of calm, not confusion, of depth, not absence. Many react to the world reflexively, allowing emotions to take control in the heat of the moment. Anger demands an immediate response. Ego insists on the last word. Fear screams for certainty. But silence resists these impulses. It refuses to be dragged into chaos. It pauses long enough to see what is really happening beneath the surface. It grants time for thought, for intention, for clarity. In this pause, one steps outside of the storm. They are no longer a participant in the noise, but a still point within it. To remain silent when insulted is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to self-control. The one who feels the sting of words and yet chooses not to retaliate is not suppressing their humanity. They are elevating it. They are not ignoring their emotions, but managing them, shaping their response with wisdom rather than instinct. They understand that not all words deserve answers, and that not every fight is worth joining. Their restraint is not passivity, but precision. It is the choice to use their energy where it matters, and to preserve their peace from the demands of every passing disturbance. Silence also invites perception. While others speak, the silent person listens, not just to words, but to motives, patterns and truths often hidden beneath the surface. Their quietness allows them to observe more, to understand more, and to act more wisely. They do not rush to fill the air or impose their opinions. They wait, they weigh, they respond when the time is right. In doing so, their words carry weight not because they are many, but because they are measured. There is also silence in enduring discomfort without complaint. The person who suffers and does not announce it to the world shows a rare kind of courage. They do not deny their pain, but neither do they demand sympathy. Their silence is not isolation, but dignity. They face hardship as one might face a storm, grounded without theatrics, without self-pity. They understand that complaining does not lessen pain, and that quiet endurance builds a strength that cannot be taught, only chosen. In moments of decision, silence creates space for wisdom to emerge. Rushed speech often leads to regret, but a pause, a breath of silence, can prevent unnecessary harm. The one who waits before speaking, who reflects before acting, shapes their life with care. Their silence is not indecision, it is discernment. They are not frozen, but deliberate. They are not silent because they lack answers, but because they are considering which answer is best. Silence can also be a shield against the constant pressure to perform, prove, or plead. In silence, one detaches from the need to be seen, to be liked, to be understood. They no longer seek their worth in others' reactions. They are content to be grounded in their own sense of rightness, in their own quiet certainty. They do not fear being overlooked because their value is not dependent on visibility. Ultimately, silence reveals where a person draws their strength. The one who can remain still while others panic, who can hold back when others lash out, who can wait when others rush ahead. This is someone who is not ruled by the moment. They are ruled by principle, guided by inner discipline, and anchored in something deeper than the noise around them. Freedom is often misunderstood as the ability to do whatever one wants, whenever one pleases. But such a definition quickly collapses under the weight of reality. Desires are endless, impulses are fleeting, and the pursuit of every whim often leads not to freedom, but to slavery to cravings, moods, and fears. True freedom, the kind that cannot be taken away by circumstance, is found in self-control. It is the ability to govern oneself regardless of what happens outside. This inner authority is what separates the person who is truly free from the one who is merely untethered. A person who cannot say no to their impulses is not free. They are ruled by whatever emotion or desire rises in the moment. If anger dictates their actions, or fear paralyzes their decisions, or pleasure overrides their judgment, then their life is not their own. They are like a ship without a rudder, at the mercy of every wind and wave. Self-control, on the other hand, is the anchor. It allows a person to hold fast to their course, to act from reason rather than reaction, and to choose the good even when it is not easy. This kind of freedom is quiet. It does not draw attention to itself, nor does it need external validation. It is felt most clearly in moments of temptation, provocation, or pressure, when one realizes they do not have to be pulled along by these forces. They can pause, consider, and decide. That simple act of choosing, of not being swept away, is a declaration of inner independence. It is a reclaiming of one's power from the grip of habit, emotion, or societal expectation. Self-control also frees a person from regret. When actions are governed by impulse, consequences often follow closely behind. Words spoken in anger, choices made in haste, indulgences pursued without thought. These leave behind a trail of guilt, shame, and confusion. But the one who has learned to restrain themselves walks a clearer path. They may still struggle, still face difficulty, but their actions are aligned with their values. They live with fewer apologies, not because they are perfect, but because they are mindful. Freedom through self-control also brings a kind of inner spaciousness. Life becomes less reactive, less crowded with compulsions. There is room to reflect, to respond thoughtfully, to live with greater presence. The person who is not constantly pulled in 1,000 directions by their desires is able to see more clearly, to act with purpose. They are no longer consumed by the chase for satisfaction because they are content with simplicity. They no longer fear boredom because they have made peace with stillness. They are not driven by what others have because they have learned to want less. There is great strength in the ability to delay gratification, to postpone a pleasure, to endure a discomfort, to hold to a principle even when it costs something. These are the marks of someone who is not a prisoner of their lower nature. They are not immune to temptation, but they are not ruled by it. Feel the pull, and yet they do not yield. That resistance is not a denial of life, but a deeper engagement with it. It is a way of affirming that one's choices are not dictated by impulse, but guided by clarity. The person who has cultivated self-control also becomes more trustworthy. Others sense their stability, their discipline, their predictability in the best sense. They are not erratic, not driven by hidden motives or sudden turns. Their presence is calming, their word more dependable. This too is a form of freedom, not only for themselves but for those around them. Their composure becomes a refuge in a world that often moves too fast and feels too unstable. Self-control is not repression. It is not the denial of feeling or the suppression of humanity. It is the intelligent management of oneself, the alignment of action with intention. It is choosing the better path, not because one is forced to, but because one understands the cost of choosing otherwise. Recognition by its nature is fleeting. The applause fades, the compliments stop, the attention moves elsewhere. A moment of glory, no matter how bright, cannot sustain a life. It cannot offer peace in the still hours, nor can it provide strength when challenges come. Character, however, is lasting. It is not dependent on how others perceive us, but on how we consistently choose to live. It endures not in the spotlight, but in the quiet decisions that build our identity one choice at a time. While recognition is external and given, character is internal and earned. When people live for recognition, they shape themselves according to the expectations and preferences of others. Their sense of worth is tied to applause, to approval, to being seen in a certain way. This creates a fragile existence, one in which the individual is constantly measuring, adjusting, and performing. Their peace is at the mercy of public opinion. A single word of criticism can unravel their confidence. A moment of neglect can feel like erasure. In this pursuit, they may lose touch with who they truly are, becoming a mirror of what others want, rather than a reflection of their own values. Character, on the other hand, does not shift with opinion. It is grounded in principle. A person of character acts rightly whether or not anyone is watching. They speak truth when lies would win favor. They remain steady when others swear. Their motivation is not the reaction of the crowd, but the integrity of their conscience. This kind of life may not always attract recognition, but it builds something stronger: respect, reliability, and peace. While recognition can be taken away, character is something no one can strip from you. It lives in how you treat others, how you carry yourself in private, and how you respond when things do not go your way. There are many who are celebrated by the world, yet are strangers to themselves. They have built their identity on image, on perception, on temporary success. But when the spotlight moves on, as it always does, they are left searching for substance. The one who builds character, however, finds strength in solitude. Their worth does not require witnesses. They know who they are, not because others remind them, but because they have lived in alignment with their deepest values. They do not perform goodness, they practice it. Recognition may inspire, but it does not sustain. It can validate a moment, but it cannot guide a life. Character does. Character is what holds a person upright when no one is cheering. It is what keeps them honest when deceit is easy and profitable. It is what compels them to do the right thing even when it costs them something. This inner compass, once cultivated, becomes a quiet force. It shapes every decision, every relationship, every challenge faced with integrity. In times of crisis or loss, recognition is silent. It cannot offer comfort or direction. But character speaks. It reminds the person who they are, what they stand for, and what they are capable of enduring. It becomes a source of resilience, not because it makes things easier, but because it makes the person stronger. It provides a sense of stability in a world that often feels unstable. There is also a freedom that comes with choosing character over recognition. The freedom to say no when pressured, to walk away when tempted, to speak honestly when it might cost something. This freedom is not loud, but it is powerful. It liberates the person from the exhausting task of trying to be admired, and instead allows them to focus on being authentic. In this authenticity lies a kind of quiet dignity, the kind that cannot be bought, faked, or borrowed. It is earned in solitude, in discipline, in the repeated choice to be good rather than to be seen as good. The quiet path is the wise path, not because it is easier, but because it is more deliberate. In a world that celebrates noise, speed, and constant display, choosing stillness and simplicity can seem countercultural, even strange. Yet it is along this quieter path that wisdom often grows. It is the path that avoids distraction, resists the pull of vanity, and seeks truth over spectacle. The one who walks this way is not swayed by public opinion or the desire for recognition. They are concerned less with how things appear and more with what things are. Their compass is internal, and their steps are grounded in reflection, not reaction. To walk the quiet path is to step away from the crowd's urgency. It is to choose depth over surface, substance over style, and patience over impulse. This path does not shout. It listens. It does not rush to answer. It observes. The wise do not feel compelled to respond to everything, to comment on every issue, or to prove themselves in every interaction. They understand the value of silence, of timing, of restraint. In their quietness there is clarity. In their stillness there is strength. Noise often arises from insecurity. The need to be seen, heard, and affirmed can drive people to speak before they understand, to act before they reflect, and to chase attention rather than purpose. But wisdom requires a different rhythm. It calls for listening, for study, for solitude. It grows in the space between impulses, in the calm between decisions. Those who walk the quiet path learn not to fear stillness, but to seek it. They understand that not every moment needs to be filled, not every opinion needs to be shared, and not every invitation to conflict needs to be accepted. The quiet path also cultivates independence. While others look outward for guidance, seeking trends, applause, or validation, the wise look inward. They are not cut off from others, but they are not ruled by them either. Their actions are measured not by what is popular, but by what is right. They do not follow noise, they follow principle. This makes their steps more certain, more thoughtful, and less reactive. They can stand alone if needed, not out of pride, but out of integrity. There is a profound humility in the quiet path. It does not demand to be noticed. It does not strive for titles or trophies. It is content to build slowly, to grow silently, and to let results speak for themselves. The wise do not need to convince others of their wisdom. They live it. Their calmness, their discipline, and their gentleness are more persuasive than any argument. In a loud world, their quietness becomes a kind of light, subtle but unmistakable. To choose the quiet path is also to embrace simplicity. The wise are not burdened by excess of words, of possessions, of They strip away the unnecessary, not because they lack ambition, but because they understand what truly matters. They focus on what endures: honesty, kindness, self-restraint, and thoughtful action. They are not distracted by the urgent because they are committed to the important. Even in difficulty, the quiet path holds its value. The wise face hardship without dramatics, without seeking pity or praise. Their strength is quiet, but it is real. They bend without breaking. They endure without They do not need to declare their struggles because they have found meaning in enduring them well. Their silence is not emptiness, it is depth. Their calmness is not indifference, it is control. This path does not promise ease, but it promises growth. It does not promise fame, but it offers peace. It requires discipline, reflection, and the courage to go unnoticed. But for those who walk it, the reward is a life that is steady, honest, and free from the exhausting pursuit of appearances. And so in a world drawn to noise, haste, and spectacle, let us remember that true strength is often silent. The quit victory is not the one paraded before others, but the one won within, the victory of restraint over impulse, of peace over turmoil, of principle over pride. It is a triumph that does not seek applause, for it does not need it. In stillness we find clarity. In self-mastery we find freedom. And in choosing the quiet path we discover a life shaped not by outward recognition, but by inward excellence. This is the wisdom that endures. This is the victory that matters.